It's an 87th Precinct bonus episode. We've just completed our main episode a week ago or something, if you're listening to this and not being us, about the book Shotgun, the 23rd 87th Precinct book from 1969. So without any further ado, let's get into looking at the editions that we own, and then we'll have a look at the original publications, as we always do, to give you a bit of an overview of what they were like when they came out in America and the UK initially. I know we avoid a lot of the looking at the around the world, but it's A, quite hard to find all the foreign editions, B, hard to know which book's which necessarily without ages doing translate jobs, of which I've started doing, and C, if you do find the images, they're not always very high quality, so it's sometimes quite hard to tell. But yes, I try and share the ones I find anyway. So let's just have a quick look. I'm going to start with mine, because if you've been following along with our bonus episodes, you'll know that we're in the UK Pan Edition super era for quite a time now, really. And the edition that I have was from a fourth printing of the 1971 edition by Pan Books. And it is very simply the barrel of a shotgun on a greyish background with the sort of stencil-like type at the top. And I will throw over to Steve-O for his edition, which is also a Pan edition. But yours
was the sixth printing, 1982, which just has a different title. Has the same image.
Yeah, has the gold band McBain title, which I quite like. It's one of my favourite ones.
The end of a shotgun barrel on as well.
Yeah. Quite simple.
It is, yeah. We've got the same rears, I bet.
Yeah, same stuff typed on the back, slightly different fonts, I think.
Not for sale in Canada.
No, they're always... Yeah, there must have been some weird thing, because that's on a lot of books. How much was your edition in 1981 or whatever?
£1.25.
Oh, mine was 50p in 1976.
Yeah, so we had rampant inflation in the second half of the 70s.
So, we come to Morgan's edition, which is a mysterious beast of a like I've never seen before.
Yeah, we don't see too many of these, do we? It's I don't actually know the year, because it helpfully doesn't tell me at all, but it's a Signet edition. Signet, who was
they were the original softback publisher.
Indeed. So it tells me that it was originally published by Signet in 1970, and this is the 16th printing, I think.
Good grief.
I don't know what year this is. I think I'd guess somewhere in the 90s, but...
Yeah, so if you just describe the cover, I think people could tell, we'll put images
on. It's a very bright red, and it's quite lurid. It has a very large Ed McBain lettering, and then just a representation of a tattoo of a dagger with the name Andy.
Yeah.
Which, is fair enough, except it doesn't really relate that much to the title. It relates to the book, obviously, but I imagine someone just sitting on a shelf would be like, shotgun, but that's a dagger.
Yeah, it is. Which, there is knife crime in the book.
There is.
But it's a bit of a... don't find it massively appealing, that look. Can I just have a quick look? Just because...
By all means.
Sometimes on the signets you can tell the year from the code, and on this one, unless it was published in the year 5674, I don't think it helps. So
it does look kind of early 90s, that, doesn't it? 93, 94.
Yeah, someone who's got their desktop publishing software in overdrive.
Yeah.
So we'll put pictures up of our editions as well as the original.
I've nearly killed myself huffing mine.
If you heard a cough before, it was because Steve had taken a deep dive. He's doing it again.
Incredibly pungent, that. The most pungent I've huffed for a while, that.
Well, good. I'm glad there's something that's left to surprise you.
So, yeah. It's like sniffing a shotgun barrel, that, I reckon.
Oof, dear me.
Similar.
Mine's just quite normal for a 70s paperback.
Right.
And Morgan always passes his across because he doesn't trust his olfactory capacity.
Odorless, that.
Yeah. Too new.
Yeah, too new.
Who knew? Too new.
Who knew?
Too new. Goodbye, Columbo. So back to the original editions. I will show these to the chaps here.
I always get excited about these.
Yeah.
Uncross me legs.
So that's how excited he is. He's uncrossed his legs, everyone. He's moved miles away from his microphone as well in order to see these.
Oh, I like those.
My goodness.
Right, okay.
So, which...
That's...
Gosh, the original US paperback's got a fairly garishly violent cover, hasn't it?
Yeah, I quite like... I quite like that one, the US hardback.
US hardback's
shotgun,
right.
like the pellet splatter.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Spelling the word shotgun on
Yeah,
a
it's
wall.
mainly negative space, but then the word shotgun is done as if it was the blast pattern.
And I like the font.
Yeah, that's a cool bit of design, that.
And then the UK hardback has got a guy with a tattoo on, and then a shotgun representation of
A blast.
in the face, with the face obliterated out. And the US paperback looks a bit bonkers.
It's rather bloody, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
I found it quite hard to find a high quality copy of the original paperback edition.
And then
But
the
yes.
UK paperback,
Yeah.
it has shotgun cartridges and a lady's body.
Yeah. So they've
quite
moved.
interesting.
So the original Pan editions, which for 3 or 4 books have been just a picture of a pistol, they've clearly thought we can't just have a picture of a pistol on the front of a book called Shotgun.
Yeah.
They've at least made that leap.
So what do we want? I know, breasts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Boobs and
I think
bullets.
that's my favourite, the US hardback.
So the original
Yeah, I like
version
that.
is Steve-O's favourites. As I say, I'll put versions of this up on the Instagram feed and various social media for people to look at. I will now show you guys as well the original publication cover, which I could only find one image of, and it's not very high resolution. So this is how it was published in the Star Weekly version.
The Star Weekly.
And so this is like a
God, who's that?
newsprint thing. it's a
Like
bit odd.
John Candy, wearing sunglasses, looking at the borrowers.
That's very strange.
That's a marvellous...
What's that supposed to be?
I don't
though?
know who that's supposed to be, really.
It's like that giant face in...
Zardos?
Yeah. That goes around like barfing guns out in the
Is the
countryside.
face meant to be sort of forming out of the smoke from the shotgun, or?
I don't know. The problem is it's too low resolution to tell. But
That
it is a
looks-
big fat face with sunglasses on, a shotgun, someone on the floor,
Somebody
and
putting pellets in
Someone
it.
loading the yeah.
They look like farmers, and then somebody dead, and then John Candy looking at them all.
John Candy meets the borrowers together at last.
It tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah,
It's,
that's a bit very strange.
Indeed.
So that's why the other versions are not for sale to Canada. They can only have the version with John Candy on the front.
Yeah. What I didn't do in the main podcast, but I will do now, is I'll just go over some of the contemporary reviews of the book. So, the Criminal Records review page in The Guardian from 1970, written by Francis Isles, says Ed McBain's Shotgun, which was 21 shillings from Hamish Hamilton, is, as usual, a good tale embellished by bright little irrelevancies. I like that. Mm-hmm. In fact, the irrelevancies seem to occupy more space than the rather tenuous main story. That sort of chimes with what we were saying.
Yeah,
that's...
But there is a striking, if not altogether, original plot, and the denouement will come as a genuine surprise. Are you making a noise, Steve?
I did clatter my spectacles against
The shock of me using the word
Yeah.
denouement. And in the New York Times, our friend Anthony Boucher is no longer writing Criminals at Large. It is a chap called Alan J. Hubin, about whom I know nothing, but I'm hoping something exciting will turn up if
Have
I
they
start...
got another sycophant to write the reviews of this?
Well, this is from July the 13th, 1969.
The best book I've ever read in my life.
Ed McBain, in last year's Fuzz, brought us the 87th Precinct in a lighter, sometimes ghoulishly lighter vein. Shotgun, from Doubleday, $4.95, is a similar attempt which does not come off as well. The plot is fragmentary and the humour less inspired. I would only take criticism with that in that I don't think he's trying to be particularly humorous in this.
No, I mean, there's always some humour.
Yeah, which is a day-to-day human thing.
Yeah.
But Fuzz, I think he deliberately pushes it a bit.
Yeah.
In this, so I think that's a bit of a strange
I don't think that's
comment.
the tone he's going for in this one at all. So
He says, but in spite of this, it compares rather well with several alleged fun novels, like Where Did All the Girls Go? I don't know what that is. Reviewed here recently. I'm not going back through all of these reviews to find his review of a different book that he's comparing this book to. Someone took a shotgun to Mr. and Mrs. Andrew Leyden. The result was messy. While Carella and Co. are looking into this one, Mrs. Leyden seems to have had a friend, now absent. Their bailiwick is visited by another discouragingly clueless homicide. Like, good use of the word bailiwick there.
Indeed.
We've had denouement and bailiwick.
And scofflaws.
And scofflaws.
Recently.
So there's been all sorts of exciting words in this run of episodes. So we'll get to the meat of the thing, which was an attempt to pacify our listening public, clamouring for who are you going to cast in the 87th Precinct if it was a series. We said we'd start by looking at when. And we've talked about it a little bit before, put some of our ideas together, but I'd like to just tell you guys some of the things people have been saying on social media about their ideas for when they'd set stuff.
Okay.
So from Jim Goodwin on Twitter, who thought it was a great question. Thanks, Jim. It was. He said his first thought is to keep it current, but in an era of CSI level tech, it would need significant rewriting not to clear cases in double time. Absolutely agree with that. Audiences also expect that of a modern show. The shoe leather approach of the 87th might play old-fashioned in any case. So he says so, period. Well, period's a tricky one with the 87th Precinct because of the ageing and stuff, so you'd perhaps have to declare which period, but I think your comment about the CSI stuff is relevant.
Unless you set each series in a different decade.
Oh, a bit like... Well, True Detective, which I've never watched, but doesn't the different series of that have different...
I've only ever seen one.
Different cast doing different things.
Yeah.
And although I don't think you'd want to be that remote from the basic concept, but you could potentially... you could potentially just say, well, series 2, it's the same characters, but it's the 80s now, and just say, and that's how it is.
Moving it through at the times as the novels did would be an interesting, something different, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That'd be something no cop show has ever quite done before, I don't think.
Do we have any other suggestions?
We've got some other comments, Our pal Hank, he says, this question illustrates why I'm not interested in 87th Precinct TV series. I like seeing the characters the way McBain portrayed them in words and over time as constants amid an ever-evolving society. Again, agree. That's one of the joys of the books. On TV, they'd just be TV cops on just another TV cop show. Well, that's why it would need some careful consideration.
Certainly would.
But TV cop shows can be good.
They can.
Some of them can be crap, though. Bill Slocum says, read the TV series. I'd split it somewhere down the middle of the 87th lifespan, say late 1970s. Gritty, vulgar, un-PC, awash in hard drugs and Carterian malaise. I think he's talking about Jimmy Carter's presidency, which was a troubled time for the States.
That's might get my vote, that,
well, I think it sort of chimes with my thoughts. Our friend Adam Paxman said, I would set it as a period piece. Fincher's Mindhunter is good in this respect, but I question the use of whiteboards in FBI classrooms in the mid-1970s. Well, I can't help you there, Adam, on that.
Well, I've seen that, yeah.
Did you feel that the whiteboards detracted from the reality?
I'd not really noticed that, but yeah.
Yeah,
you could solve all this problem though and have it like set in like medieval times. Imagine that. It could be set in like Carcassonne somewhere, or like
the 87th Fortress,
or like Madrid or somewhere. And imagine that.
I'm imagining it. It's taking a bit of a leap of
or
imagination.
The future.
Or the future.
As you say.
A dystopian future, which has no mobile phones. I think my main requirement is no mobile phones, otherwise that
so post-technological future.
Yeah, so it's got to be either...
So Zardoz again.
Either the late 70s or in some post-apocalyptical future where technology's kind of gone backwards a little bit.
Yeah. Well, interesting. A couple of other comments relevant to this. Our pal Stella says, with technology the way it is now, I wonder how many of the older stories could be told without significant changes made to the plot.
Yeah.
That's true.
Writing and rewriting a TV thing is got a lot of issues you'd have to deal with.
You can't be having mobiles around, I don't think.
And a friend on Instagram who goes by the name Eclectic Innovation. If you're going to innovate, you might as well be eclectic.
Absolutely.
Says, my preference would be for a series set in the early to mid-60s. It's my favourite mini-era, and many of my favourite 87th Precinct novels stem from this time frame. I do like that period as well. I think it would make you struggle with some of the later stories, and that was when the first TV series was set, as in when it went out, sort of 62, 63, and that felt very backwards looking. So, I don't know, maybe if you put it at 65, that would be perhaps a good point to...
Yeah,
I don't know. But I thought, on the subject of technology being the issue, I did a little sort of look at when some of the key things cropped up, or technology advances, changes. For instance, patrolmen and detectives, people having radios on them, which is almost a mobile phone precursor.
It is, yeah.
That only started to happen in the late 50s. So that's constant through the 87th Precinct. So we can assume that certainly by the 70s, portable radios are in play in the books.
Yeah.
Anyway, not just radio patrol cars. As far as I could tell, basically, in the 60s, they started having the Motorola sort of portable things rather than these having to always go to a phone. So these the more portable and effective radios were the mid-60s. So the Miranda rights, obviously 1966, we talked about that before. 911, which hasn't cropped up yet.
No.
But I suspect will crop up in the next book because that came into play in New York in 1968.
Oh.
So while McBain was writing Shotgun, 911 came into effect when they built a new central communications centre for the police. It definitely comes up in the books, but I can't remember if it's the next one or not. DNA profiling, mid-80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then becoming a lot more common, obviously, a good few years later on. Yeah.
So by the time you get into the mid-90s and then certainly into the turn of the millennium, it's almost day-to-day to some extent. I don't know how realistic that CSI stuff is and how quickly they turn around this DNA stuff.
I know we're reading that I'll Be Gone in the Dark, the Golden State Killer case. I think if DNA profiling had been a lot more common earlier, then they would have clearly cracked that case a lot sooner. But there were only a few labs in the country who were offering it when it was sort of originally coming in, and
by pure coincidence, I've been doing a lot of work at my work with people who've been doing teaching people about the use of whole genome sequencing in disease treatment or identifying resistance to drugs, and it's all now about moving from a few labs with big expensive machines to more labs where you need less skilled people operating these machines, and the machines are smaller and more portable, so you can do DNA sampling much quicker, and that's only happening now. But anyway, it does have an impact on these things,
of course,
as do particularly computers, which of course again mid-80s is when the NYPD starts using them, and therefore that's where they come into the books as well, including those mobile data systems that they have in cars. And my favourite thing I found out while looking about technology and the police was the police are never, certainly in the NYPD, haven't been issued smartphones, or they weren't issued smartphones for years. 2015, they started getting standard issue smartphones for responding to calls, for getting information and messages. And they gave them all smartphones that used the Windows operating system, which was notoriously unreliable. So they're now swapping them all out for iPhones and things like that. So there was no standardised use of mobile phones anyway. But the point with that, I think, when you saying about mobile phones is it wouldn't just affect the police, it'd affect the perpetrators and the criminals and things, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah.
So do we go with the 70s as our initial instincts were?
How are we going to resolve this? Are we going to have some sort of
murder
vote?
I don't know. I think we just need to debate it until someone's tired.
Well, we had a 60s and a 70s there, didn't we? We had a movable feast suggestion.
Well,
so we've had nothing for the 80s or after, have we? Other than
not really
moving. So 60s, 70s. I think the 70s would get my vote.
The 70s, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't have to be the late 70s. I mean, instead of.
We could move through the 70s, maybe.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, you could start in the Nixon era and go through the Carter era.
Maybe you do move a little bit with the times, because otherwise it would be because some of the 80s ones, I think, would kind of need to be set in the 80s as well a little bit. So perhaps you do need to move it forward.
Yeah, but maybe by sort of season 4, you might be into sort of Reagan era.
So if you moved it through from the beginning of the 70s to the mid-80s, that's kind of 15 years.
Yeah.
And that's probably realistic for the number of books, cases, and the aging of the characters from being in there, in Carella's case, probably early to mid-30s maybe at the beginning, to be probably pushing 50 and retirement age at the end of the...
yeah.
So perhaps moving them
We have to remember as well that as we all get older, the 70s is a period piece now of its own accord. It's not. Period piece does not mean the 1930s anymore or the 1880s.
No.
And it would take some good production work to make that feel authentic, because a lot of the time 70s stuff for a few years has sort of looked really naff, and people have just sort of treated it like, oh, it was just a little while ago and it was a bit daft. Do you remember Big Trousers?
Yeah, I mean, you'd still have a certain amount of big lapels and things, but I'm imagining it looking a bit like something like, I don't know, that slightly beige looking kind of early 70s film quality to it. Like
yeah.
I want 70s cars and lots of pollution and that kind of vibe. So I think 70s through mid-80s, beginning of series to end of series.
I think you would be perhaps remiss to ignore time passing, because although the cops don't necessarily age in the books, time is a character in there as well, because of the things that happen, the attitudes and the history of the place that it's set by proxy.
Yeah.
So the mystical, magical time frame of the 87th Precinct is important. You couldn't ignore that.
Yeah. Starting in the early 70s and maybe jump a few years with each series if we're...
Potentially,
yeah. We'll go with that.
Okay, so we've declared that in our 87th Precinct series that we want to see exist, we're going to start in, shall we say, 1972.
Yeah.
Seems as good a place
We're happy
as
with
any.
that?
Yeah.
We're going to put a firm stamp on that. I'm going to put it into Kenneth's systems to start checking the variables. Now what we want to decide then, for the next episode, is who are we going to talk about in casting terms, character-wise. And I don't think we want to go in with any of the big guns.
No.
So we don't want to be casting Corella this early.
No.
Get thinking about it, everyone.
Whoa.
But
Who are we going to cast first, yeah?
I've got an idea who I'd like to think about.
Yeah, so have I. So I'll say who I think
Go
we
on,
should cast first. I think we should cast Bob O'Brien first.
Oh, right. So you're going for one of the second stringers, or third stringers possibly even.
I'm interested in casting for Alf Miscolo.
Well, I think some of these might have to be done in batches. Because I think...
We're batch casting Bob O'Brien.
Well, could someone who was auditioning for the role of Alf Miscolo, or Miscolo, not also audition for Bob O'Brien?
Who do you want to cast first then?
I think we shouldn't go too...
Hal Willis.
No, not even that high up. Peter Byrnes.
Pete Byrnes. Well, I suppose he is in charge. Yeah.
Go in with the lieutenant.
Okay.
Bullet-headed Pete Byrnes. Let's go with that then. Well, let's see what our listeners think.
Well, we'll tell them. Get thinking about who you could cast as Pete Byrnes, and we're doing fantasy casting, aren't we? From any period.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
It wouldn't be a bad thing for us to turn up with realistic casting for if we were making it now, and fantasy casting suggestions possibly.
It'd be nice to have some alive people.
Yeah.
And then we can copy into them on Twitter, and they might actually retweet us.
Yeah,
we might get more listeners.
I think, dead or alive, you can cast whoever.
Yeah. Okie doke. So get your thinking trousers on and ponder on who you would cast as Pete Byrnes. And what I'll do is I'll find...
And Bob O'Brien.
Well, just everyone, but, specifically Pete Byrnes.
Yes.
I will find an apposite... Or I'll find the atypical description of him in one of the books, and I'll tweet that out as well, should you need any help. Not that you have to cast according to the strictness of what's been written. Who knows? You might want to cast a talking dog, I don't know. Yeah, well, I don't know. Don't Poochie this this scenario. Right.
What are you on about? Talking dog?
I know, I'm just being silly.
Right.
Okay. So I think that's us for now, isn't it? We've started to tackle this
We've got the ball rolling on that,
we have.
certainly.
Please feel free to disagree with us, as we will feel free to disagree with you. We'll see you soon for Jigsaw, the next book.
Terrific.
Oh, Columbo.
I think I've seen it.
Oh, well, we'll sort that out.
Oh, you're right, yeah.
Right, bye-bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
There thee well.